I've listened to Kristofferson by Kris Kristofferson for months.
And I listened to it once yesterday.
Welcome to Spin It.
Kris. Everybody, Kris.
Yeah.
Kris.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome back to Spin It, the record ranking podcast for people who would rather be listening to music. I'm James, and with me, Connor.
For people who would rather be christening to music.
Christening is like
yeah,
like dedicating your child to Christ, like
yeah, but to music.
to
instead.
music. Yeah,
Dedicate your child to music.
right. Well, yeah, as Connor has already very clearly alluded to, and as the title of the episode probably should have given away, we're talking about Kris Kristofferson today.
Well, I mean, I didn't give away Kristofferson. I just said
Kris.
Could have been any Kris.
Well, you could have guessed any number of Chris's, but then again, you know, the title of the album, Kristofferson, does kind of spoil the rest of it.
Dude, I want to release an album that's titled after another famous singer, so that doesn't work.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, this is Connor and his brand new album, Elton John. Surely you would be legally totally fine.
Take it one step further. Elton John's debut album.
Yeah. Which is funny because Elton John's second album is called Elton John.
Yeah.
The first one was like Blue Sky something.
That's exactly what it was called. Blue Sky something.
Yeah.
So anyway, who are we talking about?
Gosh, I forget. No, we're talking about
Kris.
That's right. That's right. We're talking about Kris Kristofferson. And hey, welcome. We've made it to the end of the 100 Grady's.
The 100 Grady's? Wow.
I know.
Doesn't have the same ring to it as just the regular Grady's did.
No, it's the regular Grady's, but triple digitified.
Man, I remember how excited we were for the Grady's.
I know.
And now we're 100 episodes past them.
I actually just today listened to our Childish Gambino episode, which was number 80.
Wow.
I know. And we talked about something happening far in the future in it. And I said, we'll check back in at episode 160 to see if it happened. And, well, now we're at 189.
Well, now we can check in 20 episodes late. What was it?
20 episodes late. I believe we were talking about whether the Community movie had released because Donald Glover.
Ah.
It has not.
It has not.
But we did project late 2024.
Let's say, when do we want to recheck in again? Let's reset the clock on that one. Do we want to go for 260 since we missed 160?
That could be useful. Well, but really we're just going by 80s.
Well, yeah.
So really we'd want 240.
We'd have to go to 280 because we were going 80, then we skipped 100. And really we skipped 110.
You're right.
I like it though, 240. I think 240 is a good number.
Yeah, that's the 80s times 3.
Let's check back in at 240 for the Community movie.
That's when the Grady's have tripled. But in the meantime, 1 Grady 9, Kris Kristofferson. This is a very non-traditional kind of country album. Kris Kristofferson is a very interesting, compelling songwriter with a heck of a story. Like, it almost seems fake. He was a big actor, and his story about his rise into the music world kind of feels like a movie. Do you know much about Kris Kristofferson?
I know his name is Kris, and his last name is his first name, Tofferson.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good place to start. That'd be like if your name was Connor Conofferson or something.
That's a pretty great name. I might change my name to Connor Conofferson.
I mean, to be fair, the audience doesn't know that that's not your last name already.
That's true.
Maybe that's always what it's been.
Maybe it is.
It is now. Surprise. I just doxed you on the podcast.
Can I go by Cece?
Yeah, sure you can.
Awesome.
We'll see how long that sticks. But first we got to talk about Kris Kristofferson.
KK.
Did you know any of his music? That's really what I meant when I asked if you knew about Kris Kristofferson. I guess I was not specific enough. You may not know his music, I guess, but you do like country music.
I do like country music.
And you do watch a lot of TV and movies.
I do watch a lot of TV and movies. I do absolutely know Kris Kristofferson.
Yeah? What from?
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm looking at your notes, and I'm just blown away by his full first name.
Yeah.
His first name is Christopher.
Yeah, Christopher.
Still spelled with a K.
Yeah.
Which means his last name could be pronounced Kristofferson, basically, right? So it's Christopher Kristofferson.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Kris Kristofferson's real name. Kristoffer.
Yeah, please.
Kristofferson.
Kris Kristofferson is like what his friends call him. If you want his government name, it's Christopher Kristofferson.
Yeah, I know. Oh, boy.
The only way that gets better is if his middle name is Son.
Let's see.
Christopher's son, Kristofferson.
I'm not seeing a middle name. He might not have one.
Well, if he doesn't have one, I'm giving him the middle name of son.
I'm adopting him. You're Kris Kristoffer dad.
Anyway, to answer your question of what I know him from.
Yeah, please, what do you know him from?
Well, I know some of his music, but I also know him from A Star Is Born and Convoy is a big one. I have the Convoy on my shelf over here right now, actually.
Whoa.
He was in Blade, wasn't he? Wasn't he in Blade?
He was in Blade.
And he was in Planet of the Apes.
That's just Earth. Spoiler alert for Planet of the Apes.
That might be it. I'm sure I'm forgetting some.
You definitely are, but that's okay. Yeah, he's really gotten around in song and screen.
I just looked up his discography, and he was in Dolphin Tale 2.
He was in Dolphin Tale and Dolphin Tale 2.
And Dolphin Tale 1.
That's right. He was in Handy Manny.
Wow.
He was in Heaven's Gate. He was in Big Top Pee-wee with Pee-wee Herman. He was in
Handy Manny? I don't remember that.
Well, it's animated. It's just his frog-like voice.
Oh, I remember him being President Andrew Jackson in Texas Rising.
Uh-huh. He is in The Land Before Time 6. I didn't know they made 6 Lands Before Time.
Yeah.
He's in Where the Red Fern Grows.
I feel like we've talked about how many Land Before Times there's been before. Or no, we did Ice Ages, right?
A lot of
We
Ice
talked about how
Ages.
many Ice Ages.
Yeah.
We haven't done Land Before Time, but yeah, they've made a lot of Land Before Time.
Yeah. He did The Muppet Show. He was in Stagecoach.
Oh, he has a voice role in Fallout New Vegas. Look at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
And he's in the video game Gun.
And he invented the gun called video game.
No, he didn't. But, yeah, you're skipping down to the end of my notes about his career, but...
Oh, my bad. Well, you asked what I knew him from.
I did.
It was mainly movies, but then I also know some of his music.
Right, I figured we'd end up talking about all of it sooner than later. Yeah, Kristofferson's got more than 85 film credits and 32 TV series credits. So he's a huge actor.
Actor.
That's right, Actorson.
I was about to say Actorson.
Yeah, Kris Kristofferson, what a guy. Well, that's where he would end his career. We should jump back to the way beginning.
I guess it would be Actorson.
Actorson.
Yeah, that's what he would go by.
Yeah.
Cadillac
Actorson.
Oh man, what a weird episode this has already been. Please make it to bullet point 2 on your list.
Well, we should start with bullet point 1.
Oh boy, we haven't even gotten there.
No, Kris Kristofferson was born in 1936, a child of the Great Depression, pre-World War II era.
A child of Christopher.
You know what?
At some point, there had better have been a Christopher to get to the last name, Kristofferson.
Well, unfortunately, his dad's name was not Christopher. His dad's name was Lars.
Ah, Lars Larserson.
Larson is probably...
Lars Larson.
Yeah, you're adding an extra in there.
Oh, no.
Well, yeah, Lars was a military man. He was in the Army Air Corps and eventually was an Air Force Major General. So Kris Kristofferson, he was born in Brownville, Texas, but he grew up kind of on the move. His dad had Army ambitions for little Kris. He wanted little Kris to grow up into a military career, but Kristofferson had other plans. After a childhood on the move with his military family, Kris graduated high school in California, and he went to Sonoma College to be a writer. And boy, was he ever successful. He had several different essays published in the Atlantic Monthly. He also played sports, and in 1958, Kristofferson ended up being featured in Sports Illustrated. He spent a lot of time studying literature and philosophy, which were hugely influential to his songwriting, as we will soon see firsthand. He graduated summa cum laude, but he wasn't done learning just yet. After college, in 1958, Kristofferson earned a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford. He may be one of the smartest people we've talked about on this podcast.
Yeah, that's awesome.
His intellect is so much, yeah. So he spent a few years overseas, furthering his studies and competing in boxing. He, like Billy Joel before him, well, after him, really. He was a boxer, genuinely, just like one of the smartest guys in music, country or otherwise. And he started to seriously consider becoming a singer during this period of his life. But, of course, there was a lot more that he had to do first. Kristofferson got married in 1961, and then, of course, at the behest of his family and his father especially, he did join the Army as a helicopter pilot. He spent time in West Germany, where he started his very first band, and what a stroke of good luck. When he came back to America, he was going to be able to teach literature at West Point. He was going to get a military teaching job.
Dang.
I know, huge, but it was not to be, sadly. He decided that he was a songwriter through and through, and he did not take them up on that offer. His family did not like that one bit. Apparently, they disowned him at the time, and the quote that I found, sources are unclear as to whether he and his family ever reconciled and made up, caused a significant bit of a rift. So Kris Kristofferson, Rhodes Scholar, brilliant military man, turns down a teaching job at West Point, and he, in 1965, heads to Nashville. He starts off as a janitor at Columbia Records, sweeping the floors. That's what a Rhodes Scholarship and military service will get you in 1965.
That's crazy.
I know. And in his spare time, when he's not sweeping the floors, he does continue as a helicopter pilot, and he flies out to oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. Both of those things would actually prove to be very useful tools that Kristofferson would use to make it in the music industry. While he was working in the studio one day, just sweeping up, cleaning, he ran into June Carter Cash, right? The wife of Johnny Cash, and of course, member of country's iconic Carter family. He was able to give her a demo tape and said, hey, you want to give this to Johnny Cash? That would be awesome if you did. And we talked about him back on episode 43 a long, long time ago.
Sure did. Getting kicked in the stomach.
By an ostrich. Yeah.
Yeah.
So June takes this tape to Johnny, and he pretty much just throws it onto the pile of tapes that he already had, because who wasn't giving their demo tapes to Johnny Cash in 1965? It was just, he was never going to listen to it.
Sure.
But, if the janitor gig doesn't turn out to be your big break into the music business, helicopter pilot is a good backup in a pinch. It'll do the trick. A few weeks later, when he realizes, has the epiphany that Johnny Cash is never, ever going to put on my demo that I just sent him, Kris takes matters into his own hands. And he, no joke, this is real, he lands a helicopter in Johnny Cash's front yard.
Nuts.
I don't know what possessed him to take that approach, but he went all out and did it. He just went for it. The apocryphal legend is that he hopped out of the helicopter with a beer in one hand and his record in the other, but that's not true. He just landed in the yard. Kris said it was still kind of an invasion of privacy that I wouldn't recommend. To be honest, I don't think he was there. He said John had a pretty creative memory. He landed at Johnny Cash's vacant house. But man, what a way to make an impression.
Yeah.
It did get Johnny Cash to listen to one of Kris's songs, Sunday Mornin Comin Down, a bona fide hit that would eventually go on to earn Kristofferson a CMA award for Song of the Year.
Wow.
So he's on the map. He's officially made one heck of an alliterative name for himself in country music. By 1967, other artists are starting to have major hits with Kristofferson songs. Jerry Lee Lewis, Roger Miller, Ray Stevens, who we talked about in episode 91. All of them and a lot more were putting out Kristofferson songs left and right. Bobby Bare, Ray Price, Kenny Rogers, even Janis Joplin, who actually, by the way, was Kristofferson's ex. She covered Me and Bobby McGee in spectacular fashion. It came out posthumously and is one of the biggest hits in her whole entire catalog. And Kris himself is starting to make waves too. He's getting out there. He performed alongside Johnny Cash at the Newport Folk Festival. That eventually got him signed to Monument Records, where he would put out his first proper record, even though, in his own words, he thought he couldn't sing. He said, I sound like a frog. Do you think that's true? Do you think he's got a frog voice?
No, I don't think so.
I have to agree. It depends on the frog, I think. Most, actual frogs, he's got him beat.
Yeah.
But, think about that frog from Looney Tunes. Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. That frog's got a good voice.
Yeah, it's that and, Kermit were, the two.
Oh, Kermit does have a good singing voice, too. Rainbow Connection.
Yeah.
So Kris Kristofferson, on a frog scale, he's somewhere in the middle. But he's not the worst frog in the pond. But yeah, that's the record we're talking about today, that debut, his self-titled record that came out in 1970, Kristofferson. It's a blend of Kristofferson songs that were already hits for other artists and new material that he was recording for the first time himself. His manager actually deliberately kept some songs back from other artists. He didn't pitch them so that Kris could be the first to put them out.
Sure, makes sense.
Totally. Solid plan for a guy with major songwriting chops already. And this album is really interesting. It's storytelling, kind of like folk country. There are a lot of character-driven narratives. There are philosophical quandaries. There are love songs. It kind of runs the gamut. But it's definitely not your standard country record from the late 60s.
No, not at all.
And because of that, in 1970, when it first dropped, the album was a commercial flop. Kris and his frog-like voice only moved 30,000 units. But other artists start to cover songs from this. They said, oh, we really like all these hits for the good times. We really like Sunday Mornin Comin Down. We really like To Beat the Devil and Me and Bobby McGee, and they start covering them. Suddenly, this record earns recognition as a masterclass in songwriting. They reissued it in 1971 under the title Me and Bobby McGee, kind of riding Janis Joplin's coattails a little bit, and that worked stupendously. The reissue of Kristofferson went to number 10 on the Top Country Albums chart and number 43 on the Top LPs chart. It was certified gold for selling 500,000 copies in the US, a very far cry from its initial run of 30K. Critics called it dynamite and potent. The Los Angeles Times said that Kristofferson was able to combine lyric sophistication with country music's traditional interests in everyday problems. The Baltimore Sun said, on this album, if you're going to list all the good songs, you list all the songs, which is pretty cool. He did get a little bit of blowback for his voice, but others appreciated the sincerity with which he was able to deliver the lyrics and tell these stories. And also, Kristofferson trivia tidbit, the Man in Black himself, Johnny Cash, wrote a portion of the album's liner notes. So, I mean, that's a major cosign.
Yeah.
From there, Kristofferson's career was off and running, and there was no slowing down.
And running and running and running and running.
Yeah, I mean, we've already touched on his acting career and the films that he was in. 85 again, and 32 TV shows. Just a ton.
Think his parents are still mad?
I think they probably had to relent at some point. They're probably not still mad because it's been many years since his parents were alive.
I meant like at this point in his career, but sure.
Oh, at this point in his career?
Let's talk about now.
I was going to say, I'm sure they've let it go by now. Yeah, at this point in his career, probably.
If not, it let them go.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I bet they came around. Once he proved, I mean, he knew what he was doing. Obviously, this is what he wanted to do. I don't know, again, I don't know if they ever reconciled, but surely you have to eat a little bit of crow, right? When your son becomes Kris Kristofferson.
I don't know, they could have been allergic to crow.
That's true.
Maybe had a little raven instead.
Whatever works. So, film career, huge. As for the rest of Kristofferson's musical career, he would put out a grand total of 18 solo studio albums. He did 4 live albums, 6 collaborative albums, and then 3 records as part of the country supergroup, the Highwaymen. And honestly, I kind of think we're in the process of collecting Highwaymen just like we collected Boy Genius.
Oh.
Yeah, think about it.
Is that the new Spin It collector's item?
Pretty much. I mean, the Highwaymen is Kris Kristofferson, Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, and Waylon Jennings. So by the end of this episode, we'll be 3/4 of the way there already.
Yeah.
We'll just be missing Waylon, who I almost put here in this episode instead, but I decided it wasn't Waylon's time yet.
So either way, we would have been almost there.
Yeah, the Highwaymen, they're coming down the highway.
We're on the highway to men. What?
Well, sadly, Kris Kristofferson passed away at age 88 at his home in Hawaii, just recently, actually, on September 28th, 2024. And that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to get an episode out about him fairly soon, you know? Just as like a tribute to his life and his legacy, because one heck of a legacy he's got.
Sure.
As far as his awards and accolades go, Kris Kristofferson made it into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1977, just 7 years after his debut. And he went into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1985. In 2004, he made it in the Country Music Hall of Fame. In 2014, he earned the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, and over the course of his life, he earned 3 Grammys on 13 nominations. And he's also earned a Golden Globe for A Star Is Born, and was nominated for an Oscar.
Wow.
Yeah, so there you go. That's Kris Kristofferson. That's the man, the myth, the legendson. And now, I believe the Mixtaper has said last week that he's got a Kris-themed round of Factor Spin coming our way.
He sure does.
That concerns me a little bit. It's going to make me really, on guard against things that are so suspicious.
Yeah.
Let's get him on out here and find out what that means.
Hey, it's me, the Kristaper.
The Kristaper. This week, instead of Connor and the Mixtaper, we've got CC and the Kristaper.
Yep.
Love it. Wonderful. Well, Kristaper, welcome back to the podcast. I'm curious to see what a Kris-themed round of Factor Spin will be like.
You can call me Kris Kristofferson.
Oh.
For short, but...
Well, that's longer than Kristaper.
Well, my full government name is Kristofferson.
Oh, of course. Naturally. Silly me.
But, yeah, we're here with a Kris-themed round Factor Spin. I have something to admit.
To admit?
Yeah.
Defeat already? I'll accept.
No.
Thank you. Oh.
Well, that's enough out of me. Yeah.
I was hopeful. All right. That's another great week of Factor Spin.
All right. Yeah. It's me, Connor, back. That's great. You won. Shut him out. Wow.
I shut him out just by telling him that he was about to admit defeat, I guess. Let's talk about this album art.
Oh, wait. Hang on. He's trying to get the microphone back.
Oh.
Hey, it's me again. That was a joke.
That was a joke?
Yeah.
Well, what am I going to do with the trophy I'm starting to order for myself?
Well, continue ordering it, but have it shipped to me.
Oh. Well, I guess we'll let it play out. Hold on, I won't click submit on the final payment yet. What do you have to confess? What are you admitting?
Oh, confessing. That's right.
That's how we got here.
I thought I had a Kris Kristofferson fact locked and loaded in the chamber for a really long time.
What do you mean?
I mean, so, you talked about the whole landing a helicopter ordeal.
Yeah, in the front yard.
I've known about that for a really long time.
Oh.
I did not realize how pivotal to his story it was.
Yes. Mega important to the tale of Kristofferson.
When I was finding Johnny Cash facts, I came across the fact that Kris Kristofferson had landed a helicopter in his front yard.
Wow. 140 some episodes ago.
Yeah, and I was like, we're definitely going to do Kris Kristofferson at some point, so I'll just keep that card in my back pocket, ready to play.
Yeah.
When we get here.
Reasonable. Yeah.
Boy, did I not realize how pivotal to his career that story is. And so obviously you were going to know about it and or find it.
Yeah.
And I was very disappointed.
Well, that's understandable. Yeah, you'd been holding on to that for a long time.
Yeah.
We, just in the Blink 182 episode, less than 10 episodes ago, we talked about how we hadn't had any helicopter facts yet. And we almost had 2 of them real quick.
Yeah.
Shocking.
But it was fated to be, because if I maybe would have never come up with our Kris-themed episode had it played out the other way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a certain sense, it would have been Kris-themed no matter what, because all the facts would have been about Kris Kristofferson.
Yeah, I have another confession to make.
Is that the only reason it's Kris-themed?
Well, when I said I had a Kris-themed round of Factor Spin last week, that's kind of the joke I was making.
Oh, no.
But then you got really excited about a Kris-themed round of Factor Spin.
Well, I did. Well, that's what you said it was.
Yeah, so I turned it into one.
Oh, great. That's good. I'm glad I could inspire creativity out of you.
Yeah. So, if you hate it, it's your fault.
Okay, so noted. I brought this upon myself.
Yeah, I was simply making a joke that we were doing Kris Kristofferson and that all facts about him would be Kris-themed because of it.
Well.
But now I have real Kris-themed stuff with fun little titles and everything.
Okay, well, it's time to beat the Mixtaper. Not quite the devil, but the closest thing this podcast has to the devil.
We're going to start with a Rugby Krisis. Like crisis, but Kris.
But Kris. Do you want me to spell that with a K?
Yeah, with a K, please.
Okay.
Krisis. Or you could just say Rugby Krisis, but spell it with a K. But then you don't really hear the pun.
Rugby Krisis.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the vibe of all of this? Is just words that have Kris in them, but with a K and pronounced wrong? Oh, boy. Sounds like this was a Kris steak. Okay, so rugby.
Yeah.
Does Kris Kristofferson play rugby?
Yeah.
Interesting. When and what else? I don't know.
He played rugby for his college team while he was a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University.
Ah, Britain, a place where rugby exists more than in America. It's here.
There's a rugby team at my college.
Yeah, it's here, but you really got to hunt for it.
Oh, it was relatively popular. There was plenty of teams. I mean, it's not like as popular as the other sports, but a lot of those colleges have a team.
That's true.
But a lot of colleges also have, like, Quidditch, so...
I heard more about my school's bowling team than my school's rugby team.
Dang. That must mean you have a pretty good bowling team.
Yeah, actually, it was a really good bowling team, but that's not the point. So he's playing rugby, and a crisis implies that something goes wrong. What goes wrong for Christopher? Darn it.
For Kristofferson? Well, there was a crisis of character.
Of character. Uh-oh. Is he a bad sport?
No. He didn't love how brutal rugby can be.
Yeah, it's definitely a very physically demanding sport. It's like football, but no holds barred, right? Don't they just, beat each other?
No, you see, he was known for his physicality and competitive spirit.
Yeah, he's a military man.
He just didn't like how brutal it was.
Like unrestrained?
Like, rugby is, kind of like British football.
Yeah. Not like soccer, but like American football in Britain.
American football in Britain, basically, but also a lot more violent. It's like if football and hockey had a baby, right? Because like in hockey, people are always like slamming each other on the walls and getting into fights, and that exists in rugby too. And he wasn't a fan of that.
Didn't he know what he was signing up for? Has he never seen rugby played?
Yeah. No, but you see, that's where the crisis of character comes in, because he wasn't a fan of it, but he was also very physical and very competitive.
He was just good at it.
He was good at it, and even earned the nickname Killer Chris
Oh, I love that.
among his teammates.
That's awesome. How long did he play rugby?
I assume the whole time. I don't really know if he stopped or not, because he eventually, came to terms with it, saying that he learned to love the camaraderie of rugby and was able to kind of block out its brutality.
That's my philosopher.
Based on that, I'm going to assume he continued to play.
Sounds like it. Love it. I really want to believe this.
But is it true?
Yeah, I think this is a fact.
Yeah, he thinks this one's a fact, guys.
I think I'll lock in Factofferson.
Oh,
It was a stretch, I know.
this is a Factofferson.
Oh boy. 1 point Tofferson.
1 point. Stop it.
Yeah, boy. We're going too far off the rails. Wow. So he did play rugby.
Wow.
Very physical.
Yeah.
I bet he was great at it.
Yep. Earned the nickname Killer Chris and everything.
Killer Chris. That's so cool. That's a great nickname. I can't believe I didn't know that.
Yeah. Killerson.
Killerson.
Anyway, that's our first one.
Killer Chris.
Let's head on over to
Whenever I say it, I hear it like Killer Queen in my head. He's a killer Chris.
Kristastrophe at the Grand Ole Opry.
Yikes. Why are these all bad things? A Krisis and a Kristastrophe? Oh no. Kristastrophe at the Grand Ole Opry. What happens? I mean, obviously, he's played the Grand Ole Opry as a member of the country music community.
Yeah. He made his debut at the Grand Ole Opry in the 70s. I don't remember if you mentioned that.
I didn't. I don't think.
Yeah. But he kind of shocked some of the more traditionalists of the Opry with his performance.
Uh-oh. The 70s. Man, we talked about how hard it was for, like, George Strait and Hank Williams to be members of the Opry.
Uh-huh.
Especially Hank in his early days, like, shocking, was definitely a thing that could happen to the Opry people.
Yep.
What did he do?
Well, he didn't stick to a classic country set.
No. What did he play?
He included spoken word poetry elements into his performance.
Well, I mean, that's a part of, like, To Beat the Devil. That's a part of his songs sometimes.
Yeah. But, in the 1970s, when he was first getting into the limelight and performing at the Grand Ole Opry for the first time, and he did it, people were surprised and not all too happy about that.
Really?
Some were. They were like, wow, that's pretty innovative. It's pretty great. And others were like, absolutely not.
Not on my barn dance show.
Yeah, this is my Grand Ole Opry, and you are soiling it and its reputation.
Interesting. Surely. I'm just thinking back to, like, John Denver and his spoken word piece that was on his 1970s album, The Box and Poems, Prayers, and Promises. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't seem out of character for this era and this style of, like, folky country.
Yeah, but not at the Opry.
So does he get invited back after he does this?
Yes, he eventually, it seems history decides that all in all, it was a pretty solid performance, and his performance helped kind of broaden the Grand Ole Opry's horizons and set his reputation as a boundary-pushing artist in country music.
That makes sense. So did they even, like, give him a condition when he came back and said, like, don't do that again? Or was he just good to go?
No. I think he was just good to go. It's just, listen,
Kristastrophe is a bit of a strong word.
It might have been a bit of a strong word, but I needed a word I could put Chris into.
Yeah. However tenuous that might have been.
I thought about Kristacular, like spectacular.
Oh.
But that wasn't as funny as Kristastrophe.
No, it's pretty bad. Have other people done spoken word since him? Did he do it again?
I would assume people have done it since him.
Okay.
Can't imagine that since the 70s there's never been a spoken word at the Grand Ole Opry.
Well, not a spoken word, but like a spoken word piece. Yes, they talk.
Yeah. Listen, I understood what you were asking.
I think this is also a Factorson.
Wow, we got a Factorson.
Yeah, I think I'll Kristofferson it in.
Oh my gosh, you're going too far.
If you could do Kristastrophe, I could say Kristofferson.
Hey, I'm doing Kristastrophe because of you. You brought the Kristastrophe upon us.
Well, I'm doing Kristofferson because of me too.
Yeah, but come on. When you're doing something because of you, it's a bit much. Me doing something because of you, different tone.
I mean, yeah, you're right.
But this is indeed a true fact.
Heyo. Kristastrophe. I'm really curious to know about that. I want to know what the piece he performed was and what it's about.
Yeah, I think it was just part of some of his songs similar to...
To Beat the Devil?
Yeah, To Beat the Devil.
That makes sense.
He might have done a full-on spoken piece song. I don't know. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting that the Opry wasn't into that sort of thing.
Yeah, I know. You'd think that maybe they'd be a little more on board. It's still very performative and very audio-focused.
Yeah.
And he sings like a frog, so...
All right. Time for the Kris-themed pun that I almost used for that last fact, but then thought it made more sense for this one.
Oh, see, you definitely did stick with...
No, it's not that one.
Oh, okay.
So I came up with one, and then I was like, no, that makes more sense for one of the other facts. Then I came up with Kristacular, and then I was like, but that's not nearly as funny as Kristastrophe. So Kristastrophe was number 3
Right.
that I came up with for that fact.
Third time's the charm.
But the original one I came up with that made more sense for a third fact, Kris-Krossing In The Ring. I was going to say Kris-Krossing the Grand Old Opry, like he was crossing them by doing something they didn't like.
Chris was crossing the Grand Ole Opry. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but this one, Kris-Krossing In The Ring.
In the ring. Kris-Krossing, I also spelled crossing with a K, just for posterity.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good.
The ring, In the Ring makes me think instantly, of course, of boxing, which I mentioned that he has done.
Ooh, very close. Very close.
Okay. What's close to boxing? Unboxing. No, what, like wrestling?
Wrestling!
Oh, the gloves are coming off.
Yeah, and the black and white striped shirt is going on.
Wait, he was a ref?
He was a guest referee. Yep.
Oh, that's cool. What level of wrestling was he a guest referee for?
The fake kind of wrestling, unfortunately.
Well, sure, but like WWE.
Yeah, yes, WWE, but back then it would have been WCW.
Thank goodness, it's the only kind I know.
It had not been rebranded as WWE yet, but same company, same owners.
That's fun. I didn't know they did like guest referees.
Oh yeah,
It makes sense. I mean, it's all scripted anyway. He just gets to go up there and blow a whistle. Who's he refereeing for? Anybody I've heard of?
probably not. Here we go. Oh, I actually did not even think about how you might find this interesting. So it was a match between Big Baritone
Okay.
and the Nashville Nightmare.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, it makes sense then. If Kris Kristofferson, a baritone from Nashville, is your referee.
Is he a baritone? Oh, okay, sure.
Probably baritone bass range. He's got definitely not a tenor
Oh, yeah.
with a frog voice.
I mean, Kermit's kind of a tenor. He gets up there.
That's true. Well, we're not talking about Kermit the Frog. We're talking about Kris the Kristofferson.
Yeah, in the late 1980s, he surprised audiences as the teased guest referee for a match between the Nashville Nightmare and Big Baritone.
Oh, it was a surprise. That's cool.
Yeah, well, like I guess the way I read that is they were teasing there would be a guest, but they didn't announce who.
They didn't say who it was. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like, bada bing, Kris Kristofferson's here. And everyone went, oh my gosh.
Bada bing! Oh, gosh. Yeah, so he was dressed in his iconic cowboy boots, hat, and kind of rugged persona, but also wearing the traditional black and white striped referee shirt.
That's cool. I think this is a spin. Spin Softverts. Oh, Kristoffer spin. There we go. That's it.
There you go. Kristoffer's spin. Wow, not even going to ask any more questions. Just going with spin.
Yeah, what else is there to ask?
I don't know, just any particular reason?
I mean, it's a very coincidental pair of wrestlers that you've picked. But also, yeah, I don't know. I'm not feeling it. If he had a crisis of confidence with rugby because it was brutish and violent.
Yeah, he'd be totally against fake wrestling.
So too is wrestling. Fake wrestling is so violent. I mean, there's a guy called The Undertaker. He takes people under. You can't do that.
Wow. Fair enough.
Doink the Clown, he doinks people. Didn't Rey Mysterio just die?
Did he? I didn't hear that.
I think he did. He lived a short life. Oh, Rey Mysterio Sr. passed away a month ago.
Ah, there you go.
WWE Rey's uncle. Oh, well, why even post this? Whatever. Well, I've been fed some iffy information about Rey Mysterio, but that's not the point. I think this is a Kristoffer spin.
This is a Kristoffer spin. I can tell you this is actually a fact. Kristofferson.
So it's not true.
Kristofferson. Yeah, this is Kristofferson.
I thought you were about to say it was a fact about somebody else.
Yeah, no. I mean, it probably is.
Was this a real match? Did you just pick the people that would be in it?
No, I completely made this whole thing up.
Wow, okay.
I did not mean to pick... I mean, I picked the Nashville one because I was like, oh, Nashville. But I did not mean to pick Big Baritone thinking that would...
Don't, like, match him at all?
Yeah, I just, like, pulled up a list of fake wrestling names on the internet.
Fake wrestling names?
Picked two at random.
I didn't want to admit to never having heard of either of them.
And so you being like, oh, a baritone from Nashville. Yeah, I just thought I'd make up fake wrestlers because there's so many wrestlers and he's not a fan of wrestling. I don't need, like, it'd almost be more suspicious if it was people he knew.
You're right. That would be pretty questionable.
I had some fun information about how, like, he even got involved in the fight and he had his own signature finishing move called the Whiskey Slam.
But he's a ref.
Right, but in fake wrestling, I know you don't watch it, the refs often, especially when there's guest refs, find a way to do something interesting in the match.
Oh.
During normal matches where it's just a random ref, but even then sometimes they get knocked out by somebody or get distracted by somebody so somebody can do something illegal. You know, there's always stuff going on with the refs.
There's always that silly scripted thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you better watch your back here. You're about to get shut outerson if you're not careful.
Maybe.
So we've had a Krisis, a Kristastrophe, a Kris-Krossing.
And now, Kristory In The Making.
Kristory. Wow, that's wonderful. I have no idea what to ask about this. What does that mean? Where can I start asking questions? Kristory In The Making?
It's a whole fact about one of the first songs he ever wrote.
One of the first songs he ever wrote. I mean, like, Sunday Mornin Comin Down is one of the oldest.
Yeah.
What's a song that you're talking about?
I'm talking about a song before he was famous, when he was just having some drinks with friends in a bar and listening to good bar music and thinking about becoming a songwriter.
As one does.
As one does. He was in a smoky dive bar in Nashville when he had the idea for a song, wrote it down on a napkin, and gave it to the band playing and asked them to perform the song.
Oh, gosh. What was it?
Well, at the time it was unnamed, but it would eventually turn into For the Good Times.
Oh, simple enough. And so he just writes down a bunch of chords?
I don't know, chords.
For the band to follow?
Chords, lyrics, I don't.
Well, they would need chords to play. He couldn't just hand them words and say, play this. They'd be like, what are you talking about?
They could just make up music. I don't know. It just says he wrote down an early version of the song on a napkin and gave it to the band playing in the bar and asked them to play it so he could hear how it sounded.
Oh, like he's workshopping it at the time.
Yeah.
Does he get up and sing along with it?
Doesn't mention anything about him joining them. Maybe he was scared they'd think he sounded like a frog. I don't know.
This frog.
But yeah, the napkin became a monumental moment in his history and really kind of helped make him realize he could write songs and that he enjoyed writing songs for other people.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that a lot. For the Good Times is such a good song, and it's easy enough that you probably could just hand it to a band and say, play away.
But is it true?
This is a tough question. I'm inclined to believe.
Is it a Kristofferson or a...
Fact-Tofferson.
Fact-Tofferson. For some reason, Fact-Tofferson leaves my brain every time.
Because it doesn't make any sense. I think this one is a Fact-Tofferson. I think this is true.
Fact-Tofferson.
So many country stories are steeped in legends like this. And I could really see it. I could see it happening, just wanting to hear your stuff played by a band, you know, thinking of it in a flash of a moment. He's obviously got a very active brain. Like, I could see this. So I think I would not be surprised if this is true. And I feel very comfortable already having 3-point Toffersons.
Fair enough. Stop it. Well, I can tell you that I have not been shut out person because this is a spin.
Please say it correctly.
Sorry, a Kris Kristofferson spin.
There we go. Oh, wow.
This is such an unhinged episode. I'm so sorry to anybody who this is your first episode. You're probably like, will these two stop it with the annoying jokes about his name? We won't,
Well,
but I'm sorry.
I doubt that they'll come up much more often. It's just that
Ofterson?
I thought it, and I couldn't think of a way to make it work without saying what you just said, so I gave it up.
Just saying off all over. That Oftenson? I don't know.
Kristofferson. Anyway.
Kristofferson. Gosh, hate it. Anyway, yeah, this is a spin. It's exactly though I came up with it for the exact same reason that you just kind of illustrated. A lot of country stars and a lot of country songs, especially back in that time period, have a lot of those cool origin stories like that.
Totally.
So I was like, that's a safe thing to lie about.
It was a very safe lie, and you got away with it.
And I kind of had Kristory In The Making kind of locked and loaded as a word that worked well with Kris.
It was way too good of a title. I should have been more suspicious from the jump.
Yeah, it was like the only one that was good.
Yeah, it was. Your words, not mine.
I kept trying to figure out how to work napkin into it. I was like, napkin Kristory In The Making? I was like, that kind of messes it up. I don't like that. So I just went with Kristory In The Making.
Yeah, good call. That's a wise decision. Well, Mixtaper.
Well, unfortunately, this Kris-themed round of factor spin did not go my way. It was a bit of a Kristastrophe.
A Krisis.
Yeah, so I think I shall retire my persona as the Kris-taper.
Oh, you're just going back to the Mixtaper now?
Yeah, well, the Kris-taper has an 0-1 record.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He's the opposite of undefeated. He's just defeated.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the Mixtaper where I have a much better record.
Yeah.
So this one doesn't count against the Mixtaper's record.
Um,
You're officially 1-0 against the Kris-taper.
Thank goodness.
Maybe he'll come back next time we do a Kris.
Oh, great. Can't wait.
Anytime we're doing a Kris from now on, you'll go up against the Kris-taper.
Huh. Yeah, that'll be fun.
All right. I think there's only one thing left to do.
That's right.
And that's to give the audience a good old-fashioned, yeah.
There he goes. Away into the sunset. Welcome back, CC.
Yo, what up? I'm CC.
Yikes. Yeah, what up? Not much. Let's talk about this album cover. It's Kris Kristofferson.
On the cover.
Nope.
Okay.
It's just him. He's sitting there half in shadow, half illuminated by some light off to his left, holding a smoldering cigarette.
Wow.
Brooding for the camera.
Brooding. I just love that we're doing Kristofferson by Kris Kristofferson. Just so much.
So much Kris.
And if you use his full name, Kristofferson by Christopher Kristofferson.
His whole name is made up of like 3 different syllables.
I do like it. I think it fits the time period, 1970s. This is I would guess 1970s.
Just to look at this cover.
Yeah, if you're like, what decade is this cover from? 70s all the way.
Yeah, and that font that he's chosen for his name kind of does remind me of like a military type font.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's our helicopter pilot / janitor / singer-songwriter / actor. Man of many talents.
Back when smoking was like in everything for subtle advertisement.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Back when doctors still endorsed it.
Yeah.
Practically. It was coming to an end. But, oh boy. I still remember as a kid going to restaurants where there were smoking and non-smoking sections.
Uh-huh. Yes. I remember that as well, which is nuts. I remember when smoking indoors was still a thing in some places, and you had your smoking and non-smoking sections, because I always had to sit in the smoking section, which was awful.
You smoked when you were a kid? That is awful. I'm glad you beat it.
Yeah, I was a cool kid.
That's just me in sunglasses, my little cigarette.
Little CC was a bad boy. It's my bad boy persona, CC.
Yeah, okay. That's more than enough about this album cover. Let's talk about the actual album that it's covering.
Nah.
It's too late. We're already here. Track 1.
Oh, man. I don't wanna.
Well.
Why are you making me do this?
Me? Don't blame me. Blame it on the Stones.
The Rolling Stones? I'll blame it on them.
Blame it on the Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger. It's all his fault.
Jagmeister.
The Jaggaroo.
The Jaggaroo.
I gotta say, I think Blame It on the Stones has aged remarkably well because, oh man, this is Kris Kristofferson kind of going, okay, boomer, back when the boomers were still like normal middle-aged.
Yeah.
It talks about how older generations blame a lot of youth problems on like contemporary rock acts, like the Rolling Stones.
Which I feel like is still something that we do today, but now it's like rap.
Yeah, it's pivoted to rap and violent video games and like all these other boogeymen that we can point to and say culture is degrading because this is in it. And that's exactly what they did to the Rolling Stones.
Because this thing that I don't like is now popular.
Yeah. Yeah. And he starts right away.
Dude, imagine if this was what he performed that the Grand Ole Opry didn't like. How ironic would that have been?
Blame it on the Stones, and they said, kids these days. Spoken word, the Rolling Stones, blame it on Kris Kristofferson. But he really does. I mean, he starts in right away with a very character-driven style of songwriting. Mr. Marvin Middle Class is the character that he introduces. He's very clear about the status of the man. First of all, the name Marvin already says a lot about this guy's mindset and where he's from.
Dude, yeah.
But then Marvin Middle Class.
You really want to write a song dunking on a group of people. Name your character Marvin.
Right. Yeah, and the taste of his martini doesn't please his bitter tongue. He's like upset that his martini's not good.
Sorry, Mr. Marvin Middle Class's martini was mid?
Yeah, Mr. Marvin Middle Class had a mid martini, and it's all Mick Jagger's fault.
Tongue Twisters by Kris Kristofferson.
Twistofferson. Sorry, there was another opportunity. Yeah, Kris Twistofferson. He does another tongue twister in here. Well, then the chorus, we kind of jump into this, again, military kind of march, right?
Yeah.
The drums roll up. And
this whole thing has, like, military cadence kind of baked into it, right?
Totally.
I can see this entire song being performed in, like, the call and response style of, like, military chants.
Yeah, definitely he draws from his roots here. And it's a very impassioned chorus. Blame it on the Stones. You'll feel so much better knowing you don't stand alone. Join the accusations. Save the bleeding nation. Get it off your shoulders. Blame it on the Stones. You know what's funny too? Ironic? He's like telling people to save the nation. Tongue in cheek, of course. Blaming it on the Stones does nothing to save the nation or fix or address any perceived problems. It simply alleviates you from the burden of blame and guilt for it.
Yeah.
Remarkably good. And then verse 2, we kind of lose track of Marvin Middle Class and head to Mother, and she's talking to the Bridge Club about how her drugs are expensive. Again, very relevant topic, even 50 years later, 55 years on.
Of the rising price of tranquilizers.
Tranquilizers is a little...
Nowadays, it would be the rising price of cigarettes.
Yeah.
That is what we would use to be like, oh, man.
Blame it on the Rolling Stones.
Okay, in the defense of cigarettes, they had some pretty awesome commercials.
I mean, sure.
Them and, like, beer really know how to make fun commercials.
No, beer gets the Clydesdales.
And I wish, like, good companies had cooler commercials.
Companies marketing products that wouldn't, like, physically kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice?
I guess they don't need it, but still. Well, it's just like Budweiser, they have the
Clydesdales.
Clydesdales. They had, back in the day, they had the frogs. Speaking of froggy voices. You know, the Bud. Why? Frogs.
Sure.
We should, at the end of this episode, we should look that up and figure out which of those three frogs sound most like Kris Kristofferson.
Sure. Well, that's Blame It on the Stones. Interesting military march of a song to open up the album.
Yeah.
Kind of sets his tone and like his messaging and his songwriting style right up front. It's very direct, and I like that.
Yeah.
Then we kind of move from a very regimented, structured song into a very unregimented sort of song with To Beat the Devil, which, again, opens with this spoken word section that lasts a long time. He almost tells the story more than he sings it.
Yeah.
What did you think about that? Is this like an instance where you don't like talking in a song, or that you do since the song is mostly built to be this way?
I think the talking makes him sound more froggy.
Oh, yeah. He talked about the devil. Then I stole his song.
Yeah, he's really croaking out those words.
Yes, he sure is.
But I didn't mind it.
No, good. Me either. This is probably one of the first Kristofferson songs I knew. In my country music class, when we talked about Kristofferson, To Beat the Devil is a song that my professor showed us. And it was cool. It was really interesting. It's about a struggling songwriter, like himself at the time, who encounters the devil in a bar one night, beats him and steals his song, like this fun, folky narrative tale that has a memorable chorus, and then also kind of pays homage to roots of like folk and blues music, right? Like the Robert Johnsons and the Crossroads. And, you know, how many songs out there are about trading your soul for songwriting power with the devil, right? Devil Went Down to Georgia, for example, would come later, but is the same principle. It's just really cool, really memorable. He dedicated the song to Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash, by the way, because they're the ones that helped him beat the devil and get on the map. And it's just the way he talks. You know, my thirsty wanted whiskey, my hungry needed beans. But it had been a month of paydays since I'd heard that eagle scream. So with a stomach full of empty and a pocket full of dreams, I stepped inside a bar. That's really cool. Man, stomach full of empty is just such a good image. Pocket full of dreams. He talks about the cigarette smoke to the ceiling. Honestly, this is the kind of bar I pictured when you or the Mixtaper started to lie about writing songs on a napkin. Kristory In The Making.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He walks into the bar, he sees the devil sitting there, and the devil says, "Can I buy you a beer?" The guy says, "I don't drink." So the devil still buys him a beer because he's the devil. And the devil plays this song for him. It's just such a good chorus. And he takes that to heart, steals the devil's song, and leaves the devil with the bill. I ain't saying I beat the devil, but I drank his beer for nothing, then I stole his song.
Dang.
Yep.
It's pretty certain you won.
Yeah, that's a win for me. And I guess I'll die explaining how the things that they complain about are the things they could be changing, hoping someone's going to care. It's that same thing that he talked about on just the first song even. If you want to make change, you got to get out there and change something. Complaining isn't going to get you anywhere. This is so good. What a strong second track. And an even stronger third track is on the way with one of his biggest hits for another artist, Me and Bobby McGee. Is this one that you knew, perhaps?
Absolutely.
Did you know the Kristofferson version or the Janis Joplin version? Or both?
I know both, actually.
Okay. Do you know the Roger Miller version?
I do.
Whoa. Okay. That's sick. Roger Miller recorded the first version of Me and Bobby McGee. It went to number 12 on the country charts, and then Kristofferson did it, then Janis Joplin did it. That's its most famous cover, right? We did her episode in the 30s about Janis Joplin.
Yeah.
It was released after her untimely death, and posthumously, it topped the Billboard Hot 100. That made it the second ever posthumously released number one on the chart, after Otis Redding and Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. We've also talked about that a little bit. It was Janis Joplin's only number one hit, and it ended up being number 148 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. And Janis's Me and Bobby McGee made it into the Grammy Hall of Fame. So that's awesome. Kristofferson's version doesn't quite have that star power of Janis's version, but man, what a tale. It's a traveling song, a road trip anthem about an ill-fated pair of lovers headed from coast to coast. I mean, practically, they start in Kentucky. They end up in California.
Oh.
And Bobby McGee leaves our speaker for another man once they make it to the coast. A tragedy. Kristofferson was inspired by a misheard name of like a friend's secretary or something. And then the Italian film La Strada. He really liked the name McGee in that film, and he wrote most of the song while he was flying helicopters over the Gulf. So this is what was on his mind, this traveling kind of folk song.
There's a song that I really like.
Yeah.
That references Me and Bobby McGee, and it's on the tip of my tongue.
Oh, You and Bobby McGoo?
What?
You and Bobby McGoo.
No idea what you're talking about.
I just made that up.
It's like right there on the tip of my tongue. It's in the lyrics. The lyrics, Me and Bobby McGee, are in the song, and I'm blanking on what it is.
Well, no wonder it's hard for you to find.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it'll come to me. But no, there's one out there.
Well, if you find it, let us know. There's just some great lyrics here, too. Ah, man. Bobby would sing the blues, and freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free. And feeling good was good enough for me. How do you write a song like this? It just can't be done.
It can't.
It can't. Yeah, it's just really nice. I really love his character development. I really love just the storytelling. It's simple. It's relatable. It just feels good. I let her slip away, looking for the home I hope she'll find. And I'd trade all my tomorrows for a single yesterday, holding Bobby's body next to mine. Like, what a heartbreaking lyric. But he's not, like, heartbroken. You know, he's wishing she's happy, but still missing her and her company on this trip. Love it so much. Can I ask which version's your favorite? If you knew all these versions, who did it best?
Ooh. I'm going to go with Kris Kristofferson, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't really care for Janis Joplin's version.
Really? That's the one I would peg as my favorite.
I don't know. I mean, Janis Joplin didn't score well for me in general. But yeah, I know it's probably the more popular version.
Yeah, I would say it probably is. Still going strong through 3 tracks, I think. And up next is another one that I really like. Best of All Possible Worlds. It's a little bit of a heavily ironic song. It is partially inspired by Voltaire's Candide, right? Best of all possible worlds. It's a line that gets used often in that story because all these horrible things keep happening to the protagonist, and he keeps rationalizing it by saying, well, this is the best that could possibly exist, so here I am. It's very like philosophical and satirical and all that. But he also wrote this after being arrested. So it's a song about his own time in jail and Voltaire. He pretty much runs into a cop after drinking, and the police officer tells him, Mr. Cool, if you ain't drunk, then you're a fool. And, well, it turns out he was a little bit drunk, so he wound up in jail. And all he does in jail is dream of wine and lonely girls in the best of all possible worlds.
And that in turn made him a fool.
That's right. He's a dreaming fool.
I meant being drunk and driving.
Oh, drunk and driving. Yeah. Sorry, you just said it later than I referred to it.
Yeah.
I really like the style of this song. I like the upbeat nature of it. I like the way that he kind of leads into the best of all possible worlds with a little doot, 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 doot. Like there's a little walk down that happens.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice. And he gets taunted by the jailer, right? The jailer comes up to him and pours himself another beer. He whispered in my ear, if booze was just a dime, a bottle, you couldn't even buy the smell. He calls him broke, throws him in jail. I don't know. It's just a whole mess. Jail songs are another staple of country music. Tom T. Hall did a lot of them, right? Week in a Country Jail. Everyone does these jail songs. I love it. But this is a really unique take on one because it's so backwards. Best of all possible worlds in the worst of all possible situations.
I like Best of All Possible Worlds too.
Yeah.
It's got a fun little beat.
Totally. A couple of guitar parts that complement each other really well, right? The main rhythm guitar and then a higher pitched guitar in the background that accents it. There's not a lot of melody to it. He definitely put lyrics first on Best of All Possible Worlds, but it's not that bad. The other thing about these songs too is they're so quick. I mean, there's a dozen of them on this album, but we're done with it within like 41 minutes. That's because he does a lot of short, sweet songs, the way country music, often was in the 70s. Help Me Make It Through the Night ends up being the shortest song on this album.
Yeah.
That is track 5. It's inspired by a Frank Sinatra interview. When somebody asked Frank what he believed in, he said, booze, broads, or a Bible, whatever helps me make it through the night. So Kristofferson took that quote and worked it into this song.
Yeah.
What helps me make it through the night is darkness, because if it's too bright, I have a little trouble sleeping.
That is my old friend.
Oh, it's true. Simon and Garfunkel. They have that mutual friend with you. This is a sad song.
As I said, I thought about making it even sadder with my own joke about what gets me through the night, but...
Well, yeah, that probably whatever you would have said would have been sadder. This one's pretty sad. He's talking to a woman. All I'm taking is your time. Help me make it through the night. I don't care who's right or wrong. Let the devil take tomorrow. Tonight I need a friend. Yesterday is dead and gone. Tomorrow's out of sight, and it's sad to be alone. So he's just really, that's the depth of despair. Yesterday was worthless. Tomorrow is obscure and pointless. I just need to get through right now, and I need somebody, because I got nobody.
I like Help Me Through the Night as well.
Yeah?
We're on a real hot streak here.
That's good. This song's a little slower and, more introspective than the silly, tongue-in-cheek Best of All Possible Worlds. Like, he kind of shows us that he can run the gamut. From Me and Bobby McGee, that's a sad, heartachy song, but fast, to the Best of All Possible Worlds, which is a happy song, but fast. And now we get Help Me Make It Through the Night. Sad song, slow. It's pretty cool. Do you know any other versions of Help Me Make It Through the Night?
Should I?
Perhaps. Famous covers of Help Me Make It Through the Night include Johnny Cash, Elvis, Joan Baez, Willie Nelson.
Then yeah, I probably have.
I was going to say.
You named a lot of people that...
Elvis alone, probably you've heard it.
Yeah, I probably have.
But also, notably, Sammy Smith covered Help Me Make It Through the Night. Her version ended up being a title track for her debut album, and it was, in fact, the most commercially successful version of the song.
Oh.
It even crossed over into the pop charts and won a Grammy for her. And for Kris. There's some interesting instrumentation choices on Help Me Make It Through the Night, too. Some, organ-type sounds. And a xylophone?
Yeah, a lot of good instrumentation.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Keeps you engaged as you listen to this song. And very melody-driven, which I love. And again, Kristofferson shows that he's still got... very contemporary relevance, even now. Enduring relevance in his lyrics. We did Blame It on the Stones with the OK Boomer style complaints. We did Best of All Possible Worlds with, unfair treatment by the police. The Laws for the Protection of the People kind of goes that same direction. Ahead of its time, perhaps, in 1970. He talks about how Billy Dalton is drunk, and so 6 squad cars came screaming to the rescue to save the town, save in air quotes, from this drunk guy, because all of us straight-laced, law-abiding good citizens, we gotta get the riffraff out of the streets, right? He talks about the police being almost weaponized against hippies, against all kinds of folks that he implies are indecent, right? They're scaring decent folks like you and me. They're not a part of it. It's like an us versus them situation. Again, very tongue-in-cheek, very social commentary levels of songwriting here. And he even expands it back to biblical contexts. And he says, look what they did to Jesus. They weaponized people against the Savior.
Dang.
Because he scared decent folks like you and me. which is just the most ironic twist of ironic twists. He said, "We don't need no riddle speaking prophets scaring decent folks like you and me." And that's just like the ultimate moment where he says, it's so arbitrary and it's so like nobody is going to live up to the standards that people want to police. There's simply no way. It's a very sing-alongable song, even though it's like very social commentary based.
Yeah, it's weird because normally those kind of songs aren't very sing-alongable.
Right. Yeah. They usually kind of just dive headfirst.
It's got such a catchy. It's actually one I found myself humming a lot. The bum 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 bum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he is able to do these social critiques in a way that makes you sing along. They're lighthearted. They're not like preachy or like super admonishing. It just makes you think about your decisions in your life and society. It doesn't really directly call anybody out because he skirts around it through telling these stories and through his character-based narratives. It's not about you. It's about hippie Homer Lee. It's about drunk Billy Dalton. It's about Marvin, middle class, like he's able to get around kind of our barriers, our censors of us being made fun of as a society by putting it to you in characters. It's really effective. And if you like characters, we are in for a lot more of them.
Yeah, we are.
I mean, half of the songs on the back half of this album contain names in the titles, like Casey's Last Ride.
Mm-hmm. Character Casey.
Character Casey. Casey's just a lonely guy who misses his ex. That's pretty much what this song's about. This song definitely feels like a bit of a Western song, right? Like an outlaw riding through the ghost town is the vibe I get from Casey's Last Ride. And he's walking through a crowded city, right? He is walking down to the subway in the shadows, following their footsteps through neon-darkened corridors of silent desperation, never speaking to a soul. And then he gets to this chorus. The chorus is totally different than the verses. It slows way down and we introduce this other character. Casey, it's been so long since I've seen you. She gives him a kiss. I've put on new stockings just to please you. Like he flashes back to this relationship as he's commuting through the dark, dingy, like toxic world. That's like his bright spot of a memory that he can't escape.
It gets like so quiet and soft there in the middle.
Yeah. The contrast is really striking.
Like, it's like he's actually there, right? Like, as you were just saying.
Yeah, you can feel her, like, caressing him as she sings this to him.
Yeah.
Very cool. And just in general, just all of it is so well written. He goes to a bar and has a drink or two, and then he stumbles as he's leaving, and he wonders if the reason is the beer that's in his belly or the tear that's in his eye. Like, he can't even distinguish why he's so out of sorts, whether he's drunk or just too emotional to carry on. It's just a really compelling tale.
It's a pretty cool tale.
It is.
Me when I'm staring at a cat.
Pretty cool tale on that cat. And then we move into Just the Other Side of Nowhere. He comes from the middle of nowhere, right? A country spot into this big, lonely, empty town. He talks about the ice and snow that's half as cold as the people I've found. He just feels alone, and the world kind of expands around him in a way that he's struggling to wrap his head around and understand. There's no chorus on Just the Other Side of Nowhere, just a bunch of verses.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really end up being something you could sing along to as much. But there's a few refrains. I've got a mind to see the headlights shining on that old white line between my heart and home. Wow. Like, half of me wants to return. Half of me wants to get out of here. Sick of spending Sundays wishing they were Mondays, sitting in a park alone. And he gives up. In the chorus he does. He says, tell all my loved ones the pride of Just the Other Side of Nowhere is going home. Tell everyone that the guy who finally made it out has seen the grass that's not greener on the other side, and he needs to return to what's comfortable and safe and home, actually home.
Mm-hmm.
Taking nothing back to show there for the dues I've paid. It's a really pretty song. It's a sad song. Maybe, perhaps, one of the top 3 saddest songs on this album.
Dang. Does that mean it is number 3? Because if not, you would have said top 2.
I don't know. I don't know whether I want to rank them all or not.
Fair enough.
But it definitely wouldn't surpass the eventual Sunday Mornin Comin Down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll get there.
We'll get there.
So it's at least top 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, but it's not number 1. And I'm also curious to see, about For the Good Times when we get to it, too. That's another one that's in contention. But Darby's Castle sits in between.
We got character Darby.
Another charactery story, Cecil Darby.
Dude, I have my own castle.
You got a castle?
Yeah.
That's cool. What?
There's a Connor castle.
There's a Connor. I do actually believe there is a Connor castle. That would make sense to me.
Yeah. There's a whole wiki source about the last heir of Castle Connor.
Interesting. I have never looked into it. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, it's a song about another character whose last name is Darby. I heard his first name to be Cecil. However, looking at lyrics, I see that they say C. Saul Darby. So I don't know if it's Saul Darby, who we're seeing, or Cecil Darby. Forgive me for my ignorance, but if it sounds one way...
I just assumed it was Darbyson.
That's right, this is Darby Darbyson. Yeah. Well, basically, this man has his heart set on building a house for his wife, right? Big, beautiful palace where the roof stretches to the sky and it's just beautiful. Takes 300 days for the gables to stretch as high as the eagles. But as he's building this castle for his family, he neglects to take care of his marriage at the expense of the house. And eventually, due to his neglect, Darby's wife cheats on him. And he catches her cheating on him. And upon seeing her in the act, he is so enraged that he burns the whole house to the ground anyway. Darby's castle goes up in flames, and the whole project is brought down in a night.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's very dramatic. It's a very, very dramatic kind of reaction for this character to have. But boy, what a story. I mean, we kind of get a premise, right? We first see the castle in ruins, and then he flashes us back to Darby starting to build it, and he walks us through the steps that it takes to get the timbers and build the thing, and then his marriage crumbles, and we walk through this whole narrative from end to beginning to end. And that's really cool, the way it kind of makes this insular loop. This song also has a lot of xylophone in it.
It does.
Like almost a distracting amount of xylophone.
They're so simple songs, but yet so catchy.
Yeah, right.
There's not a lot of complexity going on, you know, like modern music. It's just chock full of sound. These are relatively simple.
Yeah, you could play these with 4 or 5, 6 people in a band, or less in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But they just hit. And I think it's because of the way that he delivers, right? His frog voice croaks out these stories in a really heartfelt way. These characters stick with you, and their stories are memorable and distinct. He never tells the same story twice, and it makes for a really strong debut album.
Ready for a sad song?
Well, don't look so sad. I know it's over, but life goes on. Those are the first lyrics of For the Good Times, the next song that we're moving to. It's kind of a cutesy love song, actually, in practice, even though it's happening in a sad moment. We're reflecting on the good times and doing things for the good times that we've had, which is really sweet. This song was first recorded by Ray Price. For the Good Times topped the country charts and made it to number 12 on the Hot 100 with his version. And it is, a famous song. Tons of country artists have covered this. I first discovered For the Good Times from Charlie Pride. And weirdly enough, if you could believe it, this song was featured in the promo for the 2014-15 college football playoffs on ESPN.
Really?
I don't know why. I don't know the context, but they did it.
That is weird.
For the Good Times. Such a beautiful song. Figured the ballad guy would love this. Lay your head upon my pillow, hold your warm and tender body close to mine, hear the whisper of the raindrops blowing soft against my window, and make believe you love me one more time. For the Good Times. This song, he doesn't really sound very much like a frog.
No, not at all.
He gets a lot of, bell clarity in his voice.
Yeah, a lot of clarity.
I wonder if that's just, the register he's choosing to sing in, the key he's picked, or if he's being very intentional about clarity and the way that he emphasizes his syllables, or what. But he sounds great on this song. One of his best vocal moments, period. More xylophone on For the Good Times, but it's very subtle, not overdone, like Darby's Castle.
I don't think Darby's Castle was overdone.
I don't know. It's hard not to hear it and be a little distracted by it. Not overdone, maybe, but distracting is kind of how I would define it.
It's attention grabbing. I wouldn't use the word distracting. Distracting has some negative connotation I don't want to give it.
That's fair.
I'll be honest, I had a hard time with my top 3 this week.
Yeah, I can believe that. There are some heavy-hitting country all-timers on this album.
Yeah.
And one of those songs is not Duvalier's Dream. It's a fine song. It's kind of just coasting us towards the end of the album in the black hole of absolute gravity and magnetism that is eventually Sunday Mornin Comin Down.
Yeah.
First, we got to make it through Duvalier's Dream. One thing I do love about it is the string arrangement. That's unique and captivating after an album kind of missing almost orchestral strings. Duvalier, another character, lonely guy who meets a woman, trying to bring him back into a real life. He's a bitter man. He curses the sun, and he shuns the world of mortals. So
I like the way this one really starts. That opening string fall that it does.
Yeah, it's different and attention grabbing. It's just who writes a song? How do you go from For the Good Times, hold your warm and tender body close to mine and make believe you love me one more time, to a song that says Duvalier took the fickle turns of fortune in his stride, expecting next to nothing out of life, till fortune found a girl who fanned a flame he thought had died, whose burning beauty cut him like a knife. Every lyric is just unreal. And the tone is so different between like this, the laws for the protection of the people for the good times, me and Bobby McGee, like everything he does is so drastically different and so well written.
Yeah.
I mean, the man's a Rhodes Scholar. This is an Oxford man. He's brilliant. And I don't dislike Duvalier's Dream. It's just a lot harder to relate to Duvalier as a character.
And it's between two really good songs.
Huge. Yeah, it's sandwiched, stuck in between. If you had put Duvalier's Dream up where Casey's Last Ride was and switched them, I'm sure we'd be saying the same thing about Casey's Last Ride.
Yeah.
And have had other things to say about Duvalier's Dream. It's just that you're still stuck on For the Good Times when you hit it, and then you instantly drop it when you get to Sunday Mornin Comin Down.
Our closing track has 2 shortened words with apostrophes.
Mornin' Comin'. Yeah. Drop that hanging G.
How can you compete with that?
You can't. Sorry, Duvalier. Sunday Mornin Comin Down. And I think it's important. It is not Sunday morning coming down. It makes a world of difference.
Sunday morning coming down.
That's right. Boy, what a track. This is a song that Kristofferson wrote after his divorce. He was living alone. He had been fired from his pilot job for being drunk at work, which you can probably guess because a lot of these songs are about how he was drunk. And, I mean, life was just kind of in shambles for Kristofferson as he writes this song. Now, believe it or not, Sunday Mornin Comin Down was first recorded by Ray Stevens, episode 91.
Wow.
Uh-huh. I know. This was one of Ray Stevens' very serious songs.
Yeah.
So, do you know his version?
I do.
Kind of thought you would. I'm kind of surprised, actually, that it didn't make your career classics list, thinking back.
Listen, I would have brought like 30 more songs if you let me. I had to make cuts somewhere.
Oh, I know. Well, it's a good thing you cut this one so we could talk about it afresh right here. Well, Ray did his version. Johnny Cash wasn't far behind. And Johnny Cash performed it on his TV show, too, which gave it even more exposure. Cash's version went to the top of the country charts and hit number 46 on the Billboard Hot 100. Kristofferson, I mean, obviously was in a really rough spot when he wrote the song, but he said that Sunday Mornin Comin Down opened up a whole lot of doors for me. So many people that I admired it. Actually, it was the song that allowed me to quit working for a living, which is good because work quit him working for a living already. It was nice that he found songwriting and music to fill that void. Rolling Stone even ranked Sunday Mornin Comin Down the 96th greatest country song of all time. Rightfully so. And man, I'm telling you, just right from the first verse. I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head that didn't hurt. And the beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad. So I had one more for dessert. What a strong line. I mean, that paints such a vivid picture. Fumbled through the closet and found my cleanest dirty shirt and stumbled down the stairs to meet the day. There's something in a Sunday that makes a body feel alone. And there's nothing short of dying half as lonesome as the sound on the city's sleeping sidewalks. Sunday Mornin Comin Down. It's so beautiful. He just paints such a vivid word picture in every second of Sunday Mornin Comin Down. Truly, I mean, one of the great country songs of all time. It's just remarkable. And it's a great way to close this album.
It really is just an excellent closer.
It's a masterclass in songwriting. I think it's one of Kristofferson's best all time. Like, so good. But I guess it's time for us to get into Final Spin. Final Spinnin' Comin Down, as a matter of fact. I'll go first, because that's what I do. Giving music an 87 on this album. Yeah, maybe sometimes he sings like a frog, but his delivery's really sincere. The melodies are really cool and always varied enough. From the military march to the ballad to the traveling songs to the randomness of Casey's Last Ride with its horn section. Like, everything he does is pretty good. Pretty memorable here. Lyrics, I'm giving a 91. I mean, on the conservative side, a 91. What a storyteller. What a guy who knows how to, again, just critique society in a way that, like, sneaks past all our defenses. Mm-hmm. A guy who knows how to write a character. A guy who knows how to paint a word picture and describe a feeling in a way that you never thought of it, but absolutely understand it.
I can't even paint a picture.
Yeah, you can't even paint a picture, and that's worth 1,000 words.
Wow.
I know. Kristofferson can do a lot more with a lot less. And he does, all these songs are so short. I mean, he tells such complete stories in such dense packages. 91 for lyrics is, honestly, maybe a little harsh on him. 86 for instruments and production. It is nice that he keeps it simple. It's refreshing. It is a 1970 country album. So I guess you got to keep that in perspective. It sounds great. The instruments are pretty similar throughout, which kind of gives a nice cohesion to the entire record. Sometimes the xylophones are a bit much. There's just several moments, but really they're not that bad and not that intrusive. Overall vibe, I'm giving a 90. What a way to jumpstart your career. I mean, if you thought landing a helicopter in Johnny Cash's backyard was impressive, imagine doing that and then putting out this record.
Yeah.
So I'm giving Kris Kristofferson an 89.7 overall. What a songwriter. What a folk country record. He's going to land on my list at number 110, below Lana Del Rey, but above Led Zeppelin 2.
Wow.
I've been so impressed by Kristofferson ever since I've learned about him and started digging into him. What about you?
For me, I also am a big fan of Kristofferson by Kris Kristofferson.
Kind of figured you would be.
I mean, sure, does he sometimes speak a little froggy?
Ribbit.
But he has such passion.
That's Kristofferson for yes.
My top 3 in album order.
Tough top 3 coming.
Yep, me and Bobby McGee.
To Beat the Devil's not making it. That, I guess, is fair.
Not. Honorable mention going to Best of All Possible Worlds.
Ooh, still a lot of wine and lonely girls.
Continuing the high section with Help Me Make It Through the Night. And then jumping all the way down. Had to cut a lot of good stuff, but we're jumping all the way down to Sunday Mornin Comin Down.
Ouch. That is
I know.
Deliberate snub to For the Good Times.
I'm aware.
And for what? The Best of All Possible Worlds?
Yeah,
That is interesting.
Listen, I'm aware. But I already have some ballads on here, and Best of All Possible Worlds has that fun beat to it. Yeah, exactly.
In this Best of All Possible Worlds. Yeah, you're right.
Right, so as a honorable mention, I thought that deserved a good mention.
Reasonable. We've already shouted out For the Good Times quite a bit.
Yeah.
We've mentioned it a lot.
I mean, it's so good, and I would take an extra, except I see what's next week, and I don't want to risk it.
Oh. Playing to the schedule.
Yeah, you really, listen, this is really your fault. You set the schedule. If you had said it differently, I'd have an extra pick in there this week.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, that's that. As for a score, I don't see how I don't give this a 9 out of 10.
Whoa, buddy. A 9. That's big.
Yeah, again, simple songs, not always the most star power, but as an album, it's just a good album to just put on and let play, and the re-listenability is there.
Totally.
It's catchy. It's the classic example of the songs themselves. You've got some lower songs in the gallery, you know?
Sure.
But when put together on this album, and that's what we do here is we rank albums, they combine to make a 9.
Nice. Combine to make a 9. That's exciting. You know, the last 9 that I brought you was John Denver, which is an album that I've already compared this one to, with The Box and To Beat the Devil. I mean, and folk kind of country style. They're very similar in some ways.
It's been a minute. John Denver, 176?
Since Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's been a while. First 9 of the year.
Well, that I've brought. Yeah, you did Fish in a Birdcage.
Yeah. As for units.
Oh, boy.
Or as maybe we should call them unitsons.
Of course.
My unitson this week is gonna be 9 Froggy Froggersons out of 10.
Froggy Froggersons. That's really good. He doesn't sound that much like a frog. Having listened to this album now, you can confidently agree with me when I say he's at least in the middle of the frog scale.
Yeah, I mean...
He's a self-proclaimed frog, but I don't agree with it wholeheartedly. Maybe he talks like a frog, but he sings like an angel.
He talks like a frog, and then he sings like the good singing frog that does the Hello My Honey.
A little bit. He's, again, not quite that good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. That's like top-tier frog singing.
Yeah.
Much like our weird rodent scale.
For Emmylou Harris, yeah.
Yeah, if we were to do a weird frog scale for Kris Kristofferson.
A frog would be on the bad side, and Hello My Baby, Hello My Honey would be on the right side, and he'd be in the middle, and Kermit.
You have a real frog, right, at the bottom of the scale. Then you got like the Budweiser frogs.
Oh, right.
Then you've got like Kermit, and then you've got Hello My Honey frog.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in there, somewhere around the Kermity area, jury's out on above or below. We won't make that determination here necessarily.
No.
Unless you feel passionate about it.
You can resolve that on your own time, audience.
Let us know in the comments on our social media posts where you think Kris Kristofferson falls on the frog scale.
Nice. Well, where in your 9s does he go? Is he joining your country club?
He sure is. He's popping right into the country club. Kind of like he owns it, or at least manages it, because he's going in right below Alan Jackson.
Below Alan Jackson, above Lainey Wilson.
Yep.
That's a pretty strong 9.
Yeah, 9 Froggy Froggersons. They're stronger than 9 Pirate Dads, but not quite as strong as 9 Handsome Penguin Scientists.
Those silly units. Yeah. Handsome Penguin Scientist always gets me. That's a good one.
If you want to learn more about those silly units, go check out the Alan Jackson episode 126 or the Lainey Wilson episode 132.
Too true. Those were very close together.
And now they're being pushed apart by a frog.
What are you going to do? Kris Kristofferson playlist pick time. Do you have a strong inclination towards a favorite?
I do.
Yeah. What is it?
Well, do you have a strong pick?
I mean, maybe. It depends on what yours is.
Oh, okay. So should we do this by committee?
No.
Oh, okay. Dang. I've narrowed it down to 2.
Yeah. What are you two?
Help Me Make It Through the Night.
Oh, okay.
And picking something that wasn't even in my top 3 just so I can give it some recognition for the good time.
Wow. What a wild twist. Interesting.
I think those are the 2 best advertisements for this album. I think that gives you both ends of the spectrum of what's on this album. They're both really good songs. You could argue maybe Sunday Morning Comin Down is better than For the Good Times.
That's where I would kind of put my argument.
But I think Sunday Morning Comin Down has the better like chorus there, but in some of the verses gets maybe a little too slow for somebody who is like trying to decide if they want to listen to this album. I don't know. I could go Sunday Morning Comin Down as well. I think I'm going to go Help Me Make It Through the Night.
Okay. I'm kind of torn between Sunday Morning Comin Down and Me and Bobby McGee.
Oh.
Those both kind of escaped containment.
They did. I mean, Help Me Make It Through the Night also kind of escaped a little bit, but not as much maybe as those 2.
Yeah, right. Well, I think they're covered by other artists, and I think if they're songs that you recognize and you encounter them on the playlist,
yeah,
they could also draw you to this album to hear this version.
You'd be like, oh, that's a good point.
Now, Sunday Morning Comin Down, I really love its like storytelling and like imagery. Me and Bobby McGee is really good for his character work.
Yep.
And making Bobby McGee as a figure. Like, she's a really compelling storytelling device.
If I were to throw in my own opinions to your pick, I mean, both of those were in my top 3, so I'm fine with either. But I think Me and Bobby McGee is closer to my pick in terms of tone and like sound, whereas Sunday Morning Comin Down is different.
That's a great point. Yeah, I just love Sunday Morning Comin Down. I think I'll stick with it.
It's very good. All right, so there we have it. Help Me Make It Through the Night, because Sunday morning's coming down.
Help me make it through Saturday night.
Yeah.
Darn right. Well, lovely. Guess that's going to do it for this Kris-themed episode of Spin It, the podcast that you've just finished listening to. But don't finish yet. We've got more to say. You can find us next week ranking another album that Connor's afraid to overpick from this one for. What could it be? Who knows? I knows. And it's a good one. You won't want to miss it. So, if you want more info on that, be sure to find us on social media at SpinItPodOfficial on Instagram and at SpinItPod on X and everywhere else. You can find us on our website, www.spinitpod.com. And hey, tell a friend Frienderson.
I was just about to do that.
Beat you to it.
It's my thing.
Well, I know. I was just introing it. I was setting it up, and you were going to tell me what kind of friend Frienderson to tell, but...
Oh, okay. You just wanted the fun joke.
Yeah, I did.
Greedy. Tell a friend Frienderson what a Kristastrophe it would be to not listen to this episode.
Oh, very well done.
Thank you.
See, you worked your own funny joke in there. Well, the Mixtaper's joke.
Yeah.
But you can probably use it.
I'll steal it. He's not paying attention.
That's great. We'll see you next week, and until we do, keep spinning.
Oh, that's not where I thought that was going. Keep spinning!
Well, I think I was going to say keep Spinnerson.
No, I just thought you were going to be like, until we do, and then just spoil the artist, like, until we do blank person.
Oh.
I didn't realize
no,
you
I'm
were
not
like
tell
a completely different. I didn't realize there was a period. I didn't realize you were like, period, and until we do. I didn't realize it was 2 separate sentences. I thought it was 1 full sentence. Anyway.
All right, we've found the Budweiser frog commercial. Let's figure out which one sounds most like Kris Kristofferson. Bud one's not bad. Wise might be closer. Oh no, it's Kristofferson is definitely
It's right? He's
So
Christopher Kristofferson. Fantastic.
Kristofferson's definitely the frog, and it works out because he's got an in the middle of both his names.
Uh-huh. Isn't it just such a funny commercial?
I mean, I guess. Yeah, it's pretty simple.
Budweiser. Kris. Everybody.
That's how we start the episode, and that's how we end it. Goodbye.
later.